Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Ernest Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. I had no idea that I was going to be talking about the St. John's Red Storm yet again, but here we are because of the fact Rick Pitino has filled the last scholarship spot for the St. John's Red Storm. Simeon Wilcher, the former four-star guard that was committed to the North Carolina Tar Heels, has decided to commit to the St. John's Red Storm. I'm going to go over how important of an addition Simeon Wilcher and all the other additions that Rick Pitino has brought into the transfer portal this offseason, and whether I think that St. John's could be a contender in the Big East, possibly an NCAA tournament team next year, and a top 25 team in college basketball next season. Now, Rick Pitino has to be the transfer portal king in this offseason because of the amount of players that he has brought in through the transfer portal is mind-boggling. St. John's has only one player returning from last year's team in Joel Soriano. That's right, Joel Soriano is the only player from St. John's roster that is returning to St. John's this season. Now that is huge because he was a double-double machine last year. Joel Soriano is one of the most underrated centers in college basketball this past season. He was a guy that a lot of people didn't really look at when you look at guys like Hunter Dickinson, Trace Jackson Davis, Zach Edey, Oscar Sheboy, etc. Joel Soriano wasn't even talked about as much as Adama Sanogo, who played for UConn, but again, he averaged a double-double. He doesn't really have a three-point game, but with the transfers that Rick Pitino's brought in, I don't really think that Joel Soriano is going to have to step out and shoot that many threes to be effective for St. John's next season. All he has to do for the Johnnies is rebound, and he should be good to go. But if this works, if this team comes together for St. John's and has a lot of success next year, this will be one of the craziest stories in college basketball history because St. John's has brought in a remarkable 9 transfer portal players, and now they have 3 high school recruits because Simeon Wilcher, a guy that was committed to the North Carolina Tar Heels, that would have been an impact player for them this season, he decommitted when Elliott Cadu, a guy that was a 2024 recruit that decided to reclassify to 2023, he went to the North Carolina Tar Heels, and that opened the door for Simeon Wilcher to say, I'm out of North Carolina, I don't want to be behind Elliott Cadu because he's probably going to be playing more than I am, and I want to play. So Simeon Wilcher's plans changed at North Carolina. He left Hoover Davis in the Tar Heels, and he opened his recruitment in Indiana, St. John's. A lot of programs were looking at Simeon Wilcher immediately right out of the gate in the high school recruiting rankings. And in this late in the game, when you are a player that's still available and you're a guy that a lot of programs would like to have, a 4-star recruit, a actual borderline 5-star recruit, that's how good Simeon Wilcher is. He's a 6'3" guard that has a lot of talent and probably will be able to play right out of the gate for St. John's next season. A big reason why he's going to the Red Storm in the Big East because Rick Pitino is a Hall of Fame head coach that has had a lot of success in college basketball. He'll be able to learn behind a coach that is so great and on a team that will probably be able to compete in the Big East next year. St. John's is looking better and better on every passing day. I'm not going to go too in-depth about all of these players that have gone to St. John's because I've talked about them at length in other videos as well. So go check those videos out if you want to see my thoughts on some of the other players. But it's Simeon Wilcher is just the icing on the cake for St. John's. I don't know what else there is to say. St. John's' outlook has gone from bleak when Mike Anderson got fired to really good when Rick Pitino got hired, and it's just gone up from here. And yes, all of this talent's going to have to mesh together, but if it does, then St. John's will be good to go for next season and probably has a top 25 talented roster. It's just we're going to have to see how it all meshes together. But Simeon Wilcher is not the only player that St. John's has got, but he's probably one of the most important, especially out of the high school players. He's the most important for sure because he's really talented and definitely a type player that St. John's has not been able to land in the recent past. Players like that go to North Carolina, Kentucky, and other programs like that, but St. John's is now back in the ring with Rick Pitino, and Simeon Wilcher is a huge addition for St. John's. They've also got Brady Dunlap, a 4-star small forward. He is a really talented player as well. He also was a player that was committed to another program, but he went to St. John's instead as well. So again, Rick Pitino did a good job getting those 2 players. Yaxel Landenberg actually is still committed to St. John's. So those are 3 high school players that are pretty solid that all should have roles on St. John's team next year, especially Brady Dunlap and most importantly Simeon Wilcher. Now St. John's did lose Brandon Gardner to USC. That was a really tough loss, but look at the rest of the players that St. John's has brought in. You've got Glenn Taylor, a small forward from Oregon State. He's a really talented player that averaged 12 points per game. I think he definitely will have an impact this next season for the Johnnies. And then they have 4 transfers from Iona. So the familiarity's there. Rick Pitino's bringing in guys that he's used to coaching when he was at Iona. Now they're coming to St. John's, and it shows you that they have the loyalty and trust of Rick Pitino and they want to continue to play for him. Sadiko Ayu, Dennis Jenkins, Cruz Davis, and Quinn Slazinski, all players from Iona, have all followed Rick Pitino to St. John's. I think all 4 will have varying roles for St. John's next season. Naheem Aline, a transfer guard from UConn. He was on the national title team with the Huskies. The type of experience that you're going to be getting in Naheem Aline is huge. He might not have the biggest impact on St. John's team next year, but he's going to play a role, and he's going to be a guy that has experience. And having a guy that went that far in the tournament and won a national title, which is even better, and definitely will be a huge boost for St. John's next year. Sean Conway, a transfer from VMI, he's really solid. And also, St. John's did lose Posh Alexander and Dylan Adewusu to Butler and Seton Hall, respectively. Both are really tough losses, but not that big a deal with the amount of players that St. John's have brought in. Zuby Ejiofor is a transfer from the Kansas Jayhawks at center. He'll be able to back up a guy like Joel Soriano at the 5 position. I think that he'll have a solid role as well, but this is just unbelievable. This roster that St. John's has been able to accumulate together is all Rick Pitino. Yes, NIL plays a role, and I know that Rick Pitino is a mastermind, and I know that they have invested a lot in Rick Pitino, and they want to win, so that's why that they're able to get all these players as well, just not only because of how good Rick Pitino is as a coach, and players want to play for him, but also because of that, I think St. John's has upped their NIL game a bit, but this is just crazy. All I know is for St. John's is if this roster is half as good as it looks on paper, St. John's should be an NCAA tournament team. There is a chance it fails. When you have all this talent coming together, it could fail, and St. John's could miss the tournament for next season, but I have a really hard time seeing it failing, and that is even without mentioning that St. John's has brought in Jordan Dingle, the second leading scorer in college basketball, and you can't forget about him. He's a really talented player from Penn University, averaged 23 points per game this past season. Yes, it's tough to take the jump to the Power 6 level. A lot of these guys are from smaller schools, but they're really talented players, and I feel like that there's enough talent here for St. John's to have success. Glenn Taylor Jr., Jordan Dingle, now Simeon Wilcher in the high school ranks, Joel Soriano's back. Those 4 players alone are players that so many teams would want, and St. John's has them on their team, and Rick Pitino being a Hall of Fame coach as he is, and all the guys that they brought in, the Iona transfers, the continuity's there, Naheem Aline being a guy that was on a national championship team. There is a lot to like here. I'm really interested to see how good St. John's will be next season in college basketball. They have a chance to be really solid, and they could be a top half team in the Big East, could be a top 25 team in college basketball if it all works out, and should be an NCAA tournament team unless things fall off the rails. But I have a hard time seeing it doing that. It is tough to get all these players to work together, but Rick Pitino, I'm sure, will find a way. He has adapted to the new age in college basketball. He wants to bring St. John's back to glory, and the fact that he is a guy that's used to being a coach in the Big East, I think, helps as well. But again, the Iona transfers, and then you've got Jordan Dingle, the second leading scorer in college basketball from last season, Glenn Taylor Jr., Naheem Aline, a really solid transfer, and then getting Simeon Wilcher from North Carolina as the icing on the cake. I think Simeon Wilcher will be a player that can compete for minutes right out of the gate at St. John's. It's a tough loss for North Carolina, but they got Elliott Cadu. They should be fine. But St. John's, now their roster is complete. There's going to be no more transfer for St. John's in this offseason. I won't be talking about the Johnnies anymore with the transfer portal or high school players, but definitely will be talking about the Johnnies coming up this season in college basketball because they have a chance to be really solid. And Simeon Wilcher is the last player that St. John's is adding to the roster. Rick Pitino has done a mastermind of a job in the portal and the high school ranks to assemble a roster that should be really solid in college basketball for next season if it all meshes together. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below what you think about Simeon Wilcher committing to the St. John's Red Storm after he decommitted from North Carolina, whether you think he'll have success with the Johnnies right out of the gate, and how good of a job you think Rick Pitino has done in the transfer portal and in the high school recruiting ranks in this offseason for St. John's. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I will see you next time.